Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome to the last unit. My goodness, you've made it. This is Unit 14 on deserts. Save the best for last. This is an area of the world you should all be very familiar with since this is where we live. So, first off, let's talk about, what is a desert? Desert, strictly defined, is an arid land that receives less than 25 centimeters of precipitation in a year, which is about 10 inches. So about this much rain accumulated over a year. Seems like a lot. It's really not. Most other places in this country get 30, 40, 50, 60 inches of rain. So 10 inches is not a lot. That's on average. Sometimes in deserts, you get a little bit more. Sometimes you get a lot less. But on average, you're looking at around 10 inches of precipitation in a year. That's kind of how a desert is defined. Any rainfall that does occur in a warmer desert typically comes in intense downpours during a brief rainy season. I hope that sounds familiar to you all if you live in the Phoenix area. In deserts, water erosion is common in most deserts. So the weathering process, things being broken down, as well as moved and transported, water is the cause of that. So a lot of the land features and landforms we'll see towards the end of this unit come from water shaping the desert. And believe it or not, approximately 25% of the world's total land area is deserts. There's a lot of deserts out there. Since I mentioned in deserts we typically get a short rainy season, let's quickly talk about the North American monsoon. Monsoon, that word, all right, be careful. That word refers to a seasonal change in the direction of prevailing or strongest winds of a region. A monsoon has nothing to do with rain, all right? Don't say there's a monsoon outside. No, that's rain outside. That's how most people typically refer to it during our rainy season here in July, which occurs during June, July, August, sometimes into September. So that's when we experience the North American monsoon here in Arizona. There are other monsoons around the world. So this is just specifically talking about the North American monsoon. Again, it's a pronounced increase of thunderstorms and rainfall over a large area of the southwestern U.S. as well as northwestern Mexico, typically from July into August and September. So the monsoon in North America, it's only in the southwest. So like New Mexico, parts of New Mexico, parts of California, Arizona, northwestern Mexico. The monsoon doesn't exist elsewhere in the U.S. So if you go somewhere and it's raining outside and you're like, oh, is it monsoon season? They're going to have no clue what you're talking about. So the North American monsoon, again, it just describes a seasonal change in the wind or weather patterns. There's rain we get. There's thunderstorms. Those are called thunderstorms. There's rain. That's called rain. The whole season is called monsoon. All right? The whole season is monsoon. In places where it's cold and it snows, people don't say, oh, it's wintering outside. No, it's snowing outside. Snow is snow. Winter is the season. Monsoon is when we kind of call this weird season that we get in the southwest. So again, a rainstorm is not a monsoon. Rain is just rain. Thunderstorms is thunderstorm. Lightning is lightning. Thunder is thunder. Monsoon just describes a changing of weather patterns, which lead to an increased chance of thunderstorms and rain, etc. So again, monsoon refers to kind of the season. And North American monsoon is, I'm sure you can guess, the primary water source for most desert ecosystems in our region. Without it, we would get even less water than what we normally do. So how does this work? Typically, in the United States, weather patterns move from the west to the east. Typically. Different parts of the world, actually, the weather and wind patterns go different directions. Typically, there's this weird circulation of air kind of south of us, but that usually stays south of Arizona. However, in June and getting into July, that weird ridge of high pressure kind of moves up into the southwest, creating this kind of weird circular pattern. Most of the weather is still going west to east in the U.S., but again, in the southwest, our weather is starting to come up from the south. You can imagine in here in Arizona, you can see the weather patterns are kind of coming up from, so they're heading east, and they're coming up from the south over the Pacific Ocean, over the Gulf of California into Arizona. So again, typically we get most times of the year weather moving from west to east. You go outside, you look at the clouds, they're going from west to east. But again, in July, August, and into September, due to a lot of weird physics and meteorology and weather-related phenomenon, this weird high-pressure system kind of works its way up from the south, causing air to circulate up from the Pacific Ocean. And as this warm air is circulating up from the Pacific Ocean, this warm air picks up a lot of moisture as it's traveling over the ocean. And as that air kind of makes its way into Arizona, it will tend to rain. It will tend to have thunderstorms. So that moisture is kind of coming up from the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of California, this kind of being circling up north, heading north. And that's why you'll see a lot of the monsoon thunderstorms, the rainstorms, when they kind of come from the south. Depending on where you live and where you're looking at it, on this side of town, you'll see it come up from kind of the Estrella Mountains area. If you're out in Chandler, you're kind of seeing it coming up from the Santan Mountains. If you're in Phoenix, you're seeing coming up and over South Mountain. So it's kind of coming up from the south, all because of this. And we see that reflected in the rain totals. So this is a rain chart, and that shows you the different months of the year. The average amount of rainfall per year since 2007. It looks like at the current month of precipitation and how the current month is different from the average. So depending on when you're looking at this lecture, these numbers could be a little bit different. I'm making this in kind of June of 2022. If you're looking at this at a later date, you'll still see this, but check the attached PowerPoint in the modules to look at the most current up-to-date information. But using this as an example, again, during July, August, September, kind of our average, this is when we get the most rain. You can see in a lot of these other months, less than an inch. Hell, in June, we almost get nothing. And it's kind of building up until in July, August, and September. This is when we get the most rain. This is the monsoon bringing the rain. The change in weather patterns, the winds coming up from the south, the weather patterns coming up from the south, bringing this warm, moist air, creating rain. So looking at through 2022, much less than average, pretty less than average in February, less than average in March, nothing in April, so some way different, nothing in May, way different, nothing so far in June, so very different. And then again, this kind of cycles back to the last July, August, September, October, November, December in 2021. And you can see last year we actually had a little bit more than average rain in July, but a ton more rain in August, and 4 times more rain in September. So we actually had a really wet monsoon season. But that does not detract. One extra rainy season does not detract from overall the fact that we are still in a mega drought in Arizona. So looking at the 12-month average rainfall, so it's 9.54 inches. So again, under that 10-inch mark, we're just there, just below that, so very indicative of an arid desert region. But for the past 12 months, because of all that rain we got during the monsoon of 2021, during this time period, it was 15.82 inches, which is 6.28 inches above normal. So one rainy year doesn't break us from a drought. It'll be interesting to see how these numbers play out, depending on when you're watching this lecture. Again, for the most up-to-date information, check the PowerPoint. This will be updated with the most current information if you're not so happy to watch this in June of 2022. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and pause here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about different types of deserts. In fact, there's 5 different types, and they're all kind of formed differently, and that's what we'll talk about when we come back. See you in a second.